Welcome to Assembly Calendar. I'm Ted Flint. With us today, Assemblyman Mark Johns, who serves the 135th Assembly District, which includes Monroe County. Assemblyman Johns, good to see you.
Morning, good to be here.
Middle of May, about a month ago before the end of the legislative session. There's a lot of stuff still out there, but we're going to cover some issues that occurred already, like the budget was adopted for the fourth consecutive time, on time. How rare is that?
It's very rare. We haven't had four on-time budgets in a row for over 40 years. Governor Rockefeller was in power when the last time we had four in a row.
So it doesn't happen every day, and that's a good trend.
Yeah, it is. On-time budgets actually keep our credit rating higher. Moody's and the other credit rating services have upgraded our credit rating, which means that our interest rate is going to be lower in our long-term bonds. And New York State is one of the states that's most in debt, so it's good to pay a lower interest rate.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We have you speaking on the Assembly floor on the revenue portion of the budget.
Sure.
Let's take a look at that, and we'll come back and we'll comment further with Assemblyman Mark Johns.
Obviously, I'm voting in the affirmative on this particular bill, but and I do want to make sure that we get tax credits and tax breaks to manufacturing. It's what made this country great. It's what made this state great. We didn't have to worry about school funding as much in the old days when we had manufacturing jobs, good-paying jobs in this country and especially in New York State. I do have a problem with the convoluted way we're going about these tax credits. You know, with what we sent out last year, in the budget last year and then this year, $350 checks just before the election, that doesn't really look that good. Most people in my district would think that it's a little suspect. But that is going to cost us $410 million per year. I'm looking at the estimates on what this property tax freeze is going to cost. You're talking another $800 million. That's $1.2 billion. That's enough money to fund the funding gap elimination. So, you know, reluctantly, there's enough good things in this bill to vote for, but I wish that we could take some of the bad parts out. I know we can't line item anything out, but I would encourage the governor to consider that when he gets the bill on his desk. Thank you.
Yeah, so the good, let's focus on the good first.
Right.
Some tax breaks for manufacturing.
Yeah, that's a real important thing. You know, the reason why we used to call ourselves the Empire State is because we built things, we manufactured things. And it's part of the reason why the North won the Civil War. We had unlimited manufacturing assets up here. And now we got things that are made not only not in New York State, but not in this country. So manufacturing business will be treated as a zero tax entity, and that's a good idea.
Yeah. We didn't get a zero tax on manufacturing, but it was reduced, right?
No, it actually is.
Oh, it is
been zeroed out. Yeah, we're not going to
okay.
have tax on manufacturers.
Well, that is good news.
It is, and we need to have smart technology manufacturing. Those jobs are what we've lost at Kodak and other places up in our area.
Well, it's school funding, a very contentious issue every year. Wasn't as contentious this year, I don't think, was it?
Not quite as much. The governor had about $600 million extra in school funding this year, and we in the legislature added another $500 million, another $500 million into that. So it started to help, and it's part of the gap elimination, restoring money to the original gap elimination, which was under the Patterson administration.
Right. So we're slowly beginning to build to where we were before '08, before the economy crashed.
Right, and that little clip that you saw, we're talking about rebate checks, that's $410 million a year that we're handing out only to people that have kids under 18 and just before an election. Like I said on the clip, it looks a little suspect. I don't want them to think that what Ross Perot used to call using your tax dollars to buy your vote. I mean, that money could be used to restore the school funding. We could be lowering school taxes or giving it to the counties and municipalities to lower property tax in other areas.
Interesting. And you mentioned also on that piece about not having a line item for each budget item. That would be a good thing, wouldn't it?
Well, we can't, the budget is stacked about this high, and you vote for the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we have to count on, if there's bad aspects to the budget, you have to count on the governor to line item veto.
It's not up to the legislature.
It's not up to the legislature. We get the full package, and you're either thumbs up or thumbs down. You got to hope the governor does the right thing and gets rid of some of the wasteful spending.
Let's talk about a bill you've been pushing since you've been here, the SOUL Act. Explain what it is and why the need for it.
Well, the acronym is SOLE, and that stands for Single Opportunity to Legislate Equally. Single opportunity means every legislator that would like to will get one opportunity every 2 years. Terms are 2 years. We get one bill to bring to the floor for a debate, a discussion, and an up or down vote. What people don't realize is everything's done down here by the party bosses. Even if you're in the majority of party, 90% of the bills that we author down here never come to the floor for a vote. We actually write up and author more bills in the New York State Assembly than they do in the House of Representatives down in Washington. Yeah, more than double. We can author up to 12,000 bills every 2 years down here in the State Assembly. We vote on 10% of them. I mean, what are we saying to the people? That 90% of the stuff that we're authoring, that we write up, is unimportant? So my idea is that the people think that term limits are a good idea. I think the latest Siena poll said 82% of the people wanted term limits. Well, why don't we at least vote on it? I know the majority party's against term limits, but we're talking about being the house of the people, the house that's closest to the people. I think we should at least give people the opportunity to vote on it. We let them vote on gambling casinos. We're going to let them vote on going another $2 billion in debt this fall. So I think that maybe we should let people vote on other items and bring up a constitutional amendment like a 12-year term limit.
Well, I think you made those comments and similar comments on the floor of the Assembly. Let's look at your piece here, and we'll come back and we'll talk further with Assemblyman Mark Johns.
Unlimited bill writing is good, but I believe that every member, Democrat or Republican, majority or minority, in either house should have the opportunity to bring one single piece of what I would call their signature piece of legislation to the floor for a debate, a discussion, and an up or down vote. You can't ask for less than one piece of legislation every 2 years. We've passed a number of bills today. I voted for every single one of the bills. How do we know that those bills are going to go to the Senate, that they're even going to come up for a vote? When 50% of the votes that we take down here either have no Senate co-sponsor, or if they do have a Senate co-sponsor, they're never going to come up for a vote in the Senate. We passed a lot of bills down here: women's equality agenda, medical marijuana, campaign finance reform, pay equity, pay equality, minimum wage laws. There's other bills that people would like to see, not necessarily bills that I voted for. But we've passed these bills, and now we look down the aisle, we look down the corridor to the Senate, and we say, why don't you bring those votes up? I talked to a number of women that were up here for the women's equality agenda. They told me, we know if you bring that bill up in the Senate, that it would get at least 32 votes and pass. Yet, like a lot of other bills, it winds up stagnating. So my suggestion, and I believe this is really the most reform-oriented bill that we'll pass here, if we give the opportunity for every member of the Senate or the Assembly one chance every 2 years to bring a bill to the floor for an up or down vote, we're going to get much better legislation going forward.
Everything you said in that piece makes eminent sense to me. It's not too unreasonable to ask the majority. So I need to get at least one bill to the floor every 2 years.
You can't ask for less.
Will they take an up or down vote on the SOLE Act?
They took a procedural vote. It was called the discharge petition, which this means, can you discharge it to the floor for a debate or discussion? And
unbelievable.
Yeah, we got voted down. And
was the vote close?
Not really. It wasn't really a close vote. But, it's just amazing that you'll pay people, your representatives, to come down to, you're paying them 80-something or 90-something thousand a year. We pay baseball players $1 million a year or more. Wouldn't you expect that they would at least step up to the plate and pinch hit once every 2 seasons? I mean, that's all we're talking about. Take a bat, go up to the plate, and take a swing. And you're getting paid to come up with ideas. There are ideas out there to save the state billions of dollars. I have an idea for a 2-year budget cycle. Let's do 2-year budgets so localities and school districts can plan ahead. I mean, there's a lot of ideas that we have. We could cut the session in the second year short by 1 or 2 months. That would save tens of millions of dollars in per diems and mileage. These are all good ideas. These are reform ideas. We talked about term limits, getting rid of gerrymandered districts. There's a lot of things that we could do that people would like to see. Instead, you know, we vote on gambling casinos. Are we really all going to get rich because we're going to become blackjack dealers? You know, I mean, this is some of the nonsense that we vote on is really not pertinent to most people's lives, and some of the things that we should be voted on never really have a discussion whatsoever.
Now, one of your colleagues told me that there are several term limit pieces of legislation, 8-year, 10-year, 12-year, take your pick. None of those are allowed to come to the floor for obvious reasons. I mean, any kind of change has to come legislatively.
Right.
How are you going to get term limits if the parties in power won't permit up or down votes on these bills?
Well, I think you have to do it by, well, you have to do it at the ballot box. There's elections every November, and you can, you know, take a look at who's for and who's against these issues and make your determination. But I'm not saying that each law that we have is a panacea. It's going to make New York State the Empire State again. But certainly, these taken in aggregate, all these different bills taken together, will certainly make us more competitive within the country and within the world.
You mentioned also that 90% of the bills do not make it to the floor for a vote. Now, this doesn't come without a cost. I mean, we have lawyers for both sides crafting this legislation, and 90% of it never hits the floor. I mean, there's an additional millions of dollars.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're paying some pretty smart people, bill drafters, lawyers, to write up these bills, and then they don't come to the floor. You're talking about a waste of time. So if you don't believe in the SOLE Act, if you don't believe in a single opportunity for every legislator to bring a piece to the floor, let's at least allow referendum, what I call the FDR Act. Let's allow referendum and let the people go out there, get signatures, and you bring the bills up and vote on them in November.
What does FDR stand for?
Well, unlike what you might think, the obvious FDR, but I call it the Fairness and Democratic Reform Act.
How could anybody be against anything
you can't
to do with
be
fairness?
Against, no, you can't be against FDR, especially the majority party. They can't be. So that's why I call it that, but it gives everybody an opportunity. And we're talking to us, once again, we are the house of the people. We are the voice of the people. We let the people vote on gambling casinos. This fall, they're going to be voting on letting the state go another $2 billion in debt. I hope we don't vote yes on that. We're going to vote on a paperless legislature to save us money. We'll get rid of all these stacks and stacks of paperwork. We'll do it digitally. There's a lot of things we let people vote on. I suggest that we let them vote on some more important things. And that's what referendum does.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And a lot of people don't realize some of the issues you mentioned. A lot of voters miss it on the ballot. They don't see it. They're on the back sometime, and that's unfortunate. But I mean, every 2 years, budgeting out every 2 years makes sense. You give localities the opportunity to plan ahead.
Right.
In Texas, as you know, the Texas legislature meets 60 days every 2 years.
Yeah, and they're taking a few of our citizens and a few of our jobs. You know, so we do a lot of things down here. One-house bills. So the other thing I brought up on the floor is, we pass a lot of bills. 50% of the bills that we pass in the Senate or the Assembly either have no Senate co-sponsor or they're not going to come up in the Senate for a vote. So why are we even passing bills that have no chance whatsoever of ever becoming law?
It's frustrating because I know you spend many hours on the floor of the Assembly debating some of these one-house bills, well into the night, sometimes into the early morning hours, and they never see the light of day in the other house. How frustrating is that for you?
Well, it makes you wonder why we put so much time into a debate for something that's never going to become law. And, you know, it's nice to go back home and send out all the literature, and I voted for this, and I co-sponsored that, but it's meaningless because it doesn't become law. So I'm just trying to do my best to advocate for real reform. My whole slogan is we need to know, you know, what's wrong, why it's wrong, and how to fix it.
Well, we covered a lot of ground, Assemblyman Mark Johns. If you want to get in touch with the Assemblyman, you can do that. Call his district office at that number right in front of you, or will be in front of you shortly. Assemblyman Johns, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ted.
There's the DO, 585-223-9130. Thank you for joining us on Assembly Calendar. We'll see you soon. I'm Ted Flynn.